All right, good evening, and this is the evening, section or evening session of today's, video broadcast. In the morning, we had one, and this moment we are having another one. I think this is going to be, 20-minute video. I wanted to continue my studies on the apocalyptic, literature or the apocalyptic um, judgment language and how, the Jewish in the first century, understood that to mean. And understanding it will help us to understand the New Testament reality. As I always say, the New Testament, is the fulfillment and reiteration of the Old Testament. So once we have, some idea, some modicum of idea, pertaining to the uh, some of this language, then that is going to help us to, understand the New Testament. Because, if you look at the language that is used, that the Lord used in judging, in carrying out judgment against Egypt. In Isaiah chapter 13, verse 10 through to 13, is the same, judgment language applied in Jesus, appeal to and applied in that judgment against Jerusalem in AD 70. That is Matthew chapter 24, verse 29. So if you understand the Old Testament, that is going to help you to understand the New Testament as well. And that is what we try to, do. We try to do that. So, but there's a popular request. That is what I want to do. I want to deal with that popular request. Someone had requested it. In terms of his request is about the opening of the books because it is thought that at an assumed future coming of the Lord, uh, it associates judgment. The judgment is going to be like when we all line up, when we all queue up, before the judgment seat of the Lord, and the books will be opened, and the Lord is going to, uh, look into this book to see how each one of us have fared, whilst we are alive, or what we did, whilst when we were alive, and so. That is what I want to look at. I want to look at, the opening of the books and to see whether they are in association with that judgment upon Israel in AD 70. So that is what I'm going to do. I don't have ill intent against anyone. Brother Boampong, you are good. I've been watching your video. At least you've been tagging me, so I have not missed your video, and I believe you are doing well. You are trying to simplify, the scheme of redemption, and I believe that is good. The way you have simplified it, I think is good, and that is going to help us because many of us believe that internal life is dependent upon our works. In terms of being kind, in terms of being good, in terms of regular church attendance and so on and so forth. But I believe that practicing it is also important. It is good to share, it is good to give. That should be motivated. Giving should be motivated by the fact that you have eternal life by the will of God. So you are doing a good job. You are doing, keep it up. I believe that very soon we are going to come out with your videos on eschatology. We are going to continue, that part because, for a while, I have not seen you, visiting, that subject. But I believe, when you are done with, what you are doing, you are going to come back again on the subject of eschatology. Now, so the opening of the books, what is it? What is it called? The opening of the books. As I said, traditionally, that is what we've been made to believe, and it varies, in terms of how people understand the nature of the eventual judgment. Those who hold on to the future position, as far as eschatology is concerned, others believe that it's going to be like a cinema hall whereby we are going to have a big or large, screen, and whatever we did is going to be displayed upon, and we are going to render accounts to the Lord, and the Lord is going to display what we did. How is this even possible, ladies and gentlemen? You see, there's one thing. Sometimes I just look at the scenario involving the Lazarus and the rich man. You see how that judgment was done. As soon as they died, they ended up in where each of them supposed to be. One was in paradise, one is in that place of torment. They call it Tartarus or something. All right. So one was there. You understand? They did not need to appear before the Lord to render any account. So it means that the day of the accountant, the day of reckoning, was already running its course whilst they were alive here on earth. They did not need to appear before the judgment seat and to render any account. They were already rendering the account whilst alive here on earth. So when they died, they had received what they did, whilst on earth. So this is how the whole thing is going to be. It's going to be. The Lord knows those who are His, okay, and His are not subject to judgment, according to John 5, verse 24. Okay, when you obey the voice of the Lord, and we have, I believe it, we have come to uh, a situation whereby we will not be judged, and we have also crossed over from death to life. Okay, I believe that is the text. That is the text. So we are not subject to judgment, whilst when we have obeyed the word of the Lord. So this is how we have to understand it, and we have to promote it. Okay, we have to negate this idea or annul this idea of the queuing. So I believe this popular request which I am about to discuss pertains to the nature of the judgment that he has been made to understand and believe, as to how today a daughter have to join me. Wanna I don't know, but she wants to join me in the discussion anyway. So that is just by the way, and the mother is busy there, so maybe I have to help her anyway. So that is that. This is what is going to happen, and that is my catapult. I used to drive the primates away. These primates are bothering me a lot, eating the rice, the rice on the field and the maize. Even sometimes the cocoa, they eat them a lot. So, sometimes you have to go and drive them away. And we use the catapult to do that anyway. So my catapult is always, just by my side in order to keep these, predators away from my crops. That is just by the way. Now, so let's see. Now this is what I want to know. What we call the opening of the books is also called the Feast of Trumpet. It is Jewish, one of the four festivals of the Jews. They understood the okay, get down. Go and shoot the bed. Go and shoot the bed. Go and shoot the bed. Mhm. Go and shoot them. Go and shoot them. Go and catapult the birds away. Mhm. Okay, keep quiet, keep quiet, keep quiet. Okay. All right. So that is the Jewish feast day, one of the Jewish feast day called the Rosh Hashanah, or the Feast of Trumpet. So the Feast of Trumpet is also called, the opening of the books, right? It is also called the opening of the books, or the Yom Hadin, the Yom Hadin. So, when you're reading the book and you come across this Feast of Trumpet or the opening of the book, it is just reference to the Feast of Trumpet, or the feast, or what they call the coming of the King, or the feast of or the feast of the feast of the coming of the King, or the feast of the wedding of the Messiah, the Malek, the Ham Kedushin. All these things are various designations for the Feast of Trumpet. It is also called the opening of the book. So when it comes to that is also called the Day of Judgment. Yom Hadin is the Day of Judgment. So all these things are judgment terminology that are in association of or association with the Feast of Trumpet. So when you hear of the Feast of Trumpet, it's the same as the opening of the book, the Day of Awakening, the Day of Awakening, and so on and so forth. So all these things are various designations for the Feast of Trumpet. So that is that. I believe even this morning, the first video, those who watched it, you realize that we have that is also called the day and hour no man's knows. The Feast of Trumpet is also called the day and hour no man knows. So that feast, that is also, that is that. So I argue that in that video has to do with someone making claiming that the chapter 24 of Matthew is divided into two in terms of the coming of the Messiah. So they believe that verse 1 up to verse 34, others to verse 35 is fulfilled in connection with the fall of Jerusalem. However, they believe that verse 36 upwards, deals with the yet future coming of the Messiah. But I argue that it is one continuous, harmonious coming of the Messiah. There's no, two separate comings of the Lord, as far as Matthew chapter 24, is concerned, because that day and hour no man would, or the unknown day, is also uh, the unknown day is also called the Feast of Trumpet. So the coming of the Lord with his angels, with the sound of the trumpet, is also that day and hour no man knows. So it means that Matthew chapter 24, verse 31 and verse 36 are all the same. So if verse 31 occurs in AD 70, then it means that verse 36 also occurs accordingly. So that is that. So when you say the Lord coming with the angel and the trumpet sound, know it that this is the day, or this is also what we call the Feast of Trumpet, and it is in connection with the fall of Jerusalem. See, that is what the prophet said will come. The prophet, they were first to have predicted about the sounding of the last trumpet, what they call the great trumpet or great eschatological trumpet. It was Isaiah who had predicted about this. So the New Testament writers reiterated what Isaiah said will come. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 10 through to 13, you are going to realize that that is where the New Testament, Feast of Trumpet, or the opening of the books, dwells or source, have their trace root from the prophet. And Isaiah said that it will be the time when Jerusalem is destroyed. The time of the sounding of that great trumpet will be the time when Jerusalem is destroyed. So that means that the opening of the books, will also be consummated in connection with the fall of Jerusalem and the temple that occurred in AD 70. And it is all there. Just read Isaiah, just they call it the little apocalypse, okay, the decreation, language. So Isaiah chapter start at, verse 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27. But, you just make it start at 24. Then verse chapter 24, chapter 25, chapter 20, 6 and chapter 27, and that is what we call the little apocalypse, the declaration of Israel. And that is where you are going to come out with the Feast of Trumpet. It is in connection with the day when Jerusalem is dissolved, and that occurred in AD 70 anyway. But let's look at some few texts that also mentions the opening of the book. So don't just get just don't get big, don't be don't be carried away. When it comes, and when you come across, this opening of the books, it's the same Feast of Trumpet, and it's the same that judgment which occurred, in connection with Jerusalem's fall. So, if you look at Daniel chapter number 7, I believe we have another one there. So, I don't know whether to, break, because I don't think I'll be able to, exhaust all the opening of the book. But this moment we are said, because now the MTN guys are going to increase their tariff. So if you prolong your video, people might not have enough bundle to watch them. So we are just going to make it small, 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 little, snappy, 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 snappy. All right. So in Daniel chapter number 7, that has to do with the vision of the four beasts. Okay, and let's start at verse 8. He said that, well, I was considering, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one. So, among the horns that popped up, there was a little one. And this little one, what was it doing? What was it doing? A little one coming up among them, before whom three of the first horns were plucked out, by the roots. See, people try to read a lot of the Roman emperor stuff into this text, but I believe that all of these things pertains to the Roman generals. It has to, excuse me, it has to do with the generals in Israel. It has to do with Israel, and nothing pertaining to you know nothing relating, nothing in connection with the Roman Empire. I have a reason to believe that, and that I have the reason to believe that. But whatever it is, we all believe that it is something that is past. But then looking at the circumstances and looking at the context and all this, it points everything to Israel. And get out. Go to mom. Take this and go to me. Okay. All right. So I believe I can. Yeah. All right, so that is that. But a lot of people believe that it was the emperor, it was Nero, it was and so on and so forth. But I believe that the little horn has nothing to do with the empress, the emperor, whatever. But I believe that they all relate to, the authorities or the figures in Israel. I will be demonstrating that, in the subsequent, bulletin or subsequent broadcast. Anyway, so that is that. So it says that now the little one coming up, among them before whom the three of the first horns were plucked out by the roots, and there in this horn were eyes like a man. You see this that so we are talking about the little horn. The little horn has an eye like an eye of a man. Now you remember the man of sin in Second Thessalonians 2, and the man's number in Revelation chapter 13. See that there's a connection. There's a connection. You understand? That is not narrow, by the way. That is not narrow. Okay. I believe that it was the zealous leader, Eliza Ben Simon. Others disagree, but whatever it is, all these things belong to history. Okay, they are not something that is going to come. They were all, belong to, oblivion, right now. So, before whom, now it said that there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and the mouth speaking pompous words. So this little horn has an eye like a man, like an eye of a man, and it was speaking a pompous words. Now just read Second Thessalonians chapter 2, and you remember what this man of sin, son of perdition, was doing. He was claiming equality with God. He sits in the temple, claiming to be a god. Is that not a pompous word, blaspheming? But anyway, we will go there. Okay, so that is that. That is what this man was doing. Now, verse 9. He said that I watched till the throne. The thrones were put in place, and the ancient of days were seated. So this is judgment scene, right? Ancient of days is seated. So we are talking about the judgment scene, and his garment was white as snow. Now this is tabernacle clothing, right? This is tabernacle clothing. So we are talking about the Lord abiding in his tabernacle. So he is there, and what is he going to do? He is going to, pass judgment. He's going to execute judgment. You understand? But all is in connection with, this little horn, okay, who made pompous, statement. and and the ancient of days was seated. His garment was like a white snow, and what we have find this uh, in the New Testament, in Revelation. Is it Revelation 13:14? Okay, the heaven and earth it fled away from his sin when the ancient of day has seated. Okay, so we are talking about judgment scene, and this is not when the Lord has ascended to heaven, because it cannot be that. It cannot be that. And they are he said, and the hair of his head was like a pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame. Each wheel a burning fire. Verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. A thousand thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, and the court was seated, and the books were opening, or the books were open. So, I believe in Revelation chapter 7. Look at the verse 9 following. You realize that there's this similar statement there. Okay, and that is spoken in the context of the what we call the Feast of Tabernacles, because see there we see the people holding palm branches away, waving. That is the Feast of Tabernacle, the multitude. Okay, who were before the throne of God. Okay, so the Lord has taken his seat, and and the heavenly court was in section, and books were opened. The opening of this book is what we call the Feast of Trumpet, the day or the time, the day of judgment, the Yom Hadin, and this is what is taking place. All right, so the opening of this book is in association with this little horn, which has an eye like an eye, eyes of a man, and also speaking pompous words. So let us understand the context has not changed and it's still in the same context now. In during Yom Hadin, during the Feast of Trumpet, what they believe that a heavenly court is in section and books are opening. Now, when books are opened, the Lord will look into each one's account to see how they have how far they have come in terms of abiding by His word or His commands and decree. And so during this day, Israel will be in that state of peppiness, or that state of repentant kind of, okay, because judgment is ongoing, and it usually occurred on the first Tishel, first of for the first day of Tishel, and that is also dependent upon the sighting of the moon. So while the moon is sighted, they will prompt the high priest, who will order for the blowing of the trumpet to begin this feast. And they believe that at this time the Lord is opening into their has opened their books, and is also and he's going through the account to see how they have failed. Now this continue till the books are closed on the 10th day, and the 10th day the books are closed for or in view of the feast of atonement, because now the high priest will have to go before the Lord with the blood of animal to atone for the sons of Israel. Now when the high priest is successfully, or when the high priest is able to return from the holy place to the people, then it will signify to Israel that he has returned apart from sin for salvation. That sounds exactly what Christ said he was going to do. Christ said he was going to do, in terms of he completing his atonement. So in Hebrew chapter number 9, verse 28, it says that those who are eagerly waiting for him, he will appear a second time apart from sin for salvation. So this is what this is. Jesus Christ was also a high priest, and so we have the types and antitype all working together. In Hebrew chapter number 6, verse 18, 19, 20, the Lord has also entered the most holy place. But however, he did not enter the most holy place made with hands, but heaven itself on our behalf. And what this is going to do is going to atone for the sins of the world. Now once he is done doing that, he also have to return to those who are waiting for him, that to indicate that indeed he has done that, and the Lord has their sins have been forgiven. That is the time of the coming of the Messiah, okay, and that is the consummation of salvation. So that is how we have to understand that the consummation of salvation is tied to the what they call the second coming of Christ, or the parousia. So if the Lord has not come, it means that the salvation is not a current reality, it's a prolepsis, if you understand, already but not yet. But we believe that that has already been completed. At least the Feast of Trumpet, the opening of the books. So this opening of the books is in association with the time when the Lord judges this little horn. Now, if you read down, it's going to tell you that the opening of this book, the Feast of Trumpet, okay, is in association with judgment against this little horn. The Lord is going to judge the little horn. Now, just hold on. I'll have to jump because I said I wanted to spend 20 minutes, recording this video. So in verse 5, in verse let's say, okay, in verse 17, or let's say in verse 18. Okay, let's start at verse 17. It said that those great beasts which are four kings which arise out of the earth. Okay, so you understand, we have to understand this earth. It was the same earth of Matthew 24 and the same earth of Revelation chapter 1 verse 7, both of which I quote from Zechariah chapter 14, verse um, 1 to 7. Excuse me, Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10 to 14. All right, so these were the kings of Israel. Okay, they are not the emperor. Many believe that they were the Roman emperor, these kings. Okay, but I believe that Israel, they have kings, but of course they, at some point in time, they said that they have no king than Caesar. But per my studies, in future I will have to share my studies. I believe that I have come to realize that these kings were kings of Israel. Okay, at least the generals who led those battalions, during the Judo-Roman War. Okay, so That is that. At least in the context, it will tell you that. I know people may have different views, but whatever it is, these are things that have already occurred. They are not things that are going to come. But the emphasis or the focus of this video is the opening of the books, and that is what I am trying to demonstrate. That this is in connection. The books are open against this little horn. Now, see, I'm going to prove that now. So in verse 17, said that those great beasts which are four kings which arise out of earth by the saint of the most high shall receive the kingdom. Now what we read it in Matthew chapter 21, I believe verse 40 following, the Lord said that he's going to take the kingdom from Israel. That is why Peter inquired from him whether at this juncture, when the Lord was about to depart, whether he was going to restore the kingdom to God, to Israel, because to them belonged to the kingdom. The kingdom was a promise to Israel. Okay, but because they had misbehaved, including the killing of the Messiah and anticipating or the onward persecution of the church, they will be dispossessed of the kingdom and it will be given to a nation. Okay, so he said that now when this happened, he said that but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever and ever, even forever and ever. So today, don't haven't we possessed the kingdom? Okay, and so we all see in that context. If you read the verse 13 and verse 14, it's going to tell you the coming of the Lord, in the clouds of heaven. But I wouldn't want to go there. But all is in this, in connection with the opening of the books, the coming of the Lord, the receiving of the kingdom. Okay, receiving of the or the kingdom by the saints, and they will possess it. Now verse 19, then I wish to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, because the three have been plucked down. Now the one that emerged out was the little horn. So Daniel inquired to know more about this, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful. Others believe it is narrow titles and so on and so forth, but I will have to associate this to the element or figures in Israel. Exceeding dreadful, with 8 teeth of iron and 8 nails of bronze, which devour and broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with his feet. Verse 20. And the 10 horns that were on its head, these were the 10 generals of Israel. 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, before which three fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke pompous words. So down the little horn is here again. Pompous word, which pompous word, whose appearance was greater than his fellow. Now, verse 21. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the same. So, what was happening? Now, the war has come again. I have spoken the war in my video yesterday. That many believe that it was a war that broke out in heaven. Satan fought the Lord in heaven. That is not true. This was the war, the first century war. All the what motivated this war was identity, as to whether who are the true sons of the Lord. Okay, who are the true sons of the Lord? The Jews believe that through their lineage with Abraham, they are the one. But the saints were also trying to demonstrate to them that no, indeed, we are led by the Spirit. As many as are led by the Spirit are the sons of God. So that is what led to this, skirmishes and fracas, and that provoked the war, until the Lord came in AD 70 to destroy them. Okay, so this is what he was doing. This little horn was making war against the saints. So who was this? So the little horn is a Jewish figure, because it were the Jews who were making war against Israel, against the saints in the first century until AD 70. Okay, they have restrained apostles, they attempted to kill many, and so on and so forth. So this is what the little horn was doing. So they where was I? Verse 20. And that, okay, namely verse 21. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them. Verse 22. Until the ancient of day came. So now the Lord has come until the ancient of day came, and judgment was made in favor of the saints. So see what is happening in favor of the saint of the Most High, and time came for the saint to possess the kingdom. So that judgment was in favor of the saint, but it was against the little horn. So when the Lord came in AD 70, the saints were saved because they had fled to Mount Pella for protection. But the Israelite don't believe in Jew. The apostate Israel, they were destroyed, in that judgment. So the little horn belongs to, those who have been persecuting, the church. So the Lord is going to come to destroy them. In order that He will give, freedom and wipe away their tears and so on and so forth. And so this little horn was making a pompous word. Now, when you turn to Thessalonians, Second Thessalonians, so let's see what we have here, and to bring this video to an end. Now, in First Thessalonians chapter 2, he said, now, brethren, concerning the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and our gathering together. Now, this is a regathering of Israel. We ask you not to be soon shaken in the mind or troubled, either by spirit or by words or by letter, as if from us, as though the day of the Lord had come. Now, the word had come is the word enistiken or enistime. That is, has arrived. So, in other words, that as early as AD 51, 52, there were, people who were spreading this falsehood that the Lord has already come. Okay, but Paul had corrected, the time by giving two conditions: the apostasy and the revelation, destruction of man of sin. Okay, who sit in Jerusalem temple. So Paul did not dispute the fact that the Lord was going to come in their generation. However, it was the timing. It was going to come in AD 70, but they had already, made this statement, prior to that. So let us understand that. So let us understand what this text. But I want you to know what this, man of sin was doing. He said, let no one deceive you by any words, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all things that is called God, that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself to be, showing himself that he is God. Now, this is the work of the little horn. He spoke pompous word. And this man, exalted himself, sat in the Jerusalem temple, claiming him, calling him, claiming equality with God, claiming that he is also God, and so on and so forth. So that little horn was, a Jewish figure, and the opening of the books was the time of the judgment against this little horn, in favor of the saint. And this is that judgment that occurred in AD 70. So we will have to end here and to come your way some other time. Bye.